ways. Maybe their hearts just aren't in it anymore. The Dutch government, at least what's left of it, is in shambles, largely because of the NATO offensive in Afghanistan. Now the question is, how long before other European countries follow suit? Matthew Ho is a former Foreign Service officer and a Marine Corps captain. He joins us now to kind of shed light on what's going on in Afghanistan with the coalition troops and the American troops. You heard about the Dutch government pulling out now saying that they don't want to be a part of this. Surprised?
No, the Dutch were supposed to withdraw this year. And there was planning for that. So I'm not going to fool anyone and try and explain what's happening in internal Dutch politics. But it is a big deal. It is a big shock that a European capital will be, a European government will be dissolving because of what's happening in Afghanistan, particularly as this was planned that the Dutch will be leaving this year.
But what does that, I mean, I'm guessing there's a chance for the Dutch to decide to stay longer if they wanted to. But it seems as if the tide is kind of turning when it comes to the sentiment about the war in Afghanistan across Europe and maybe a little bit over here in the United States as well. What does this say about, I guess, just the war itself, about how it might turn out, about the risks involved now that there is a little bit of a resolve that's kind of softening?
Sure. I think what it is people aren't sure, and when I say people, folks in the West, aren't sure what the benefits are. What are the benefits to their country's security, their country's prosperity of having thousands of troops deployed halfway around the world at an immense cost in a time where every nation is struggling financially and economically? What's the benefit for them to be in the midst of, when you study it, is really a civil war? And the stated purpose of being there, Al-Qaeda, it continues to be shown by recent attacks as, a safe haven in Afghanistan is not what Al-Qaeda needs. They conduct attacks through individuals and small cells. They're an internet-based organization. And so they don't, the influence of 150,000 U.S. and NATO troops in Afghanistan is going to have no bearing on Al-Qaeda's operations. So I think a lot of people are asking, what's the benefit of our young men and women being over there?
That's a question you ask when you decide, and I think I have this correct, when you resign from the State Department. But you want to make a clear distinction on why you resigned from the State Department, too. We talked about this earlier. You said that there is no benefit, but you're not going to go so far as to say that there isn't a point to this war, or no, that troops should be pulled out at this point.
Yes, I'm not advocating for us to cut and run. I'm not saying if we could wave that magic wand and be rid of all logistical concerns, be out of there tomorrow. I do advocate for a ceasefire. What I saw in both the east and the south of the country is that our troops are engaged with an enemy who's fighting us because of our presence, because we're occupying them. If we were to pull out of those valleys, if we were to enter into a ceasefire, those people in those valleys, they're not going to line up and march on Kabul. They're going to go back to living in their valleys and trying to survive because it's such a tough existence there anyhow. So the first thing I'm advocating for is a ceasefire and then going into very thorough and very expansive negotiations that would lead to a political settlement and a 3+ decade long civil war in Afghanistan.
So if I have this correct, keep the troops there, just don't fire any shots. But does this mean that NATO countries need to still remain there, such as the Dutch, in your opinion?
It's up to the Dutch what the Dutch are going to do. It is a big blow for NATO, for ISAF, and for the Afghan central government to lose the Dutch because the Dutch are located in Uruzgan. Uruzgan is a very strong and sympathetic home for the Taliban. So to lose the Dutch from a key area is a difficult thing for NATO and the Afghan government to absorb.
Do you find that, in turning more towards the American side of things, do you find that the Americans are kind of starting to ascribe more to your beliefs about this war in Afghanistan?
In some ways they are, and I have been, kind of emboldened a bit and a little more optimistic over the past month or so. You have heard Secretary Gates say things along the lines of the Taliban are the natural political fabric, or part of the political fabric of Afghanistan. General McChrystal said that all wars must end through a negotiated political settlement. The problem is we're conducting operations like Marja, which really I'm not sure what that's going to accomplish. All we're doing is putting in a large force. We're causing a lot of civilian casualties. And we're trying to bring about governance in Afghanistan, but what we're doing is we're pushing foreign troops who are leading Afghan troops who are not from that area into the area, and then we're bringing in outsiders to govern that area. For example, the man who's come in to administer Marja has been living in Germany for the last 15 years. So we continue to bring in outsiders to basically subjugate a rural population that does not want any presence, whether foreign or from other parts of Afghanistan.
Matthew Ho, former Foreign Service officer, thank you so much.
Thank you.